This is Breaking the Line, the ECNL podcast featuring ECNL CEO and President Christian Lavers, ECNL Vice President and Chief of Staff Doug Bracken, and a special guest today, ECNL Boys Commissioner Jason Kutney. This week's podcast comes to you live from the ECNL Boys Playoffs out in Redmond, Washington, and we'll get to Christian, Doug, and Jason after this message from Nike and Quickle.
Nike is a proud sponsor of ECNL. Nothing can stop what we do together to bring positive change to our communities. You can't stop sport because hashtag you can't stop our voices. Follow Nike on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. The ECNL is pleased to announce Quick Goal as the official goal provider and partner for ECNL Girls and ECNL Boys, a new partnership created to support the growth and development of the country's top players, clubs, and coaches at all national events, including national playoffs and national finals. The Quick Goal Coaches Corner will provide hospitality and social space for ECNL Girls, ECNL Boys, and collegiate coaches. Quick Goal will also be the presenting sponsor of the National Championship winning ECNL Girls and ECNL Boys Coaches of the Year and the ECNL Girls and ECNL Boys Goals of the Year. Quick Goal looks forward to helping the ECNL continue to elevate the standards of youth soccer and provide more opportunities to players on and off the field in the coming years.
So we are live today as part of the ECNL Playoffs, so I turn it over to Christian Lavers.
Well, welcome to the 2025 ECNL Boys Playoffs here in beautiful Redmond, Washington. Happy to be back here. Last year we were here for the girls' playoffs as we swap back and forth, boys and girls every year. Doug Bracken?
Nice to be here, Christian. Love coming here. Great facility. Weather great. For playing, obviously, which is what we care about. So happy to be here, happy to get into this. We have a very special guest.
Very special. Speaking of great.
Well, our specialist guest.
Most special.
Most special.
Jason Kutney, Boys Commissioner.
Until that special guest arrives, I'm here, it seems. But I am super excited to be here. I love Seattle. I was here in, I think, 2018. Blaine and I were talking about this earlier. I think it was 2018. I was here coaching on the girls' side in playoffs, and had a really amazing experience here in Seattle, and super happy to be back. I mean, the fields are unbelievable, the weather's unbelievable, so it's a good setup.
Fun fact, Christian, as you know, we held our first ever ECNL playoffs here back in 2010. You remember that?
That is true, I do.
And the funny story that I have to say about that, I tell everybody, is the first team that won the national championship was headed up to the stage. We had gotten these really nice trophies, if you remember.
You were tying ribbons on the trophies.
Well, I was tying ribbons on the trophies, and I was like, Christian, somebody's going to have to do the trophy presentation. And you were like, who's doing that? I said, I think you are. So
First
Christian
and last
did it.
time.
First and last time. Trophy presentation brought to you by Christian Lavers. 16 years ago. 16 years ago. So
We also ran out of shirts to sell on midday of day one.
Yes, we did.
In 2010 playoffs.
We've come a long way.
Yeah.
We've grown up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here, and we'd be remiss not to do a shout out to Crossfire. This unbelievable facility. They put a lot of work into this, shut it down, put a lot of TLC into the grass, and it is an unbelievable place to play.
Yeah, they've been a great partner, just both from the league perspective and just holding this event and being able to be here year in, year out, and so hopefully for many more years.
So this is a playoff special episode. We're at the coming towards the end of the Regional League playoffs. So we've had 3 Regional League playoffs around the country: South, West, Midwest. And we got the East Coast RL playoff going on, actually coming up this weekend.
Yep.
So each of those events was 176 teams. Awesome events. We got teams moving on from each one of them going to the Regional League Finals in Richmond. And now, today, we kick off the boys ECNL playoffs, 330-something boys teams here. Tomorrow, kick off the girls playoffs down in San Diego, 330 girls teams there. It's an unbelievable month of I mean, some people watch the FIFA World Cup or the CONCACAF Gold Cup or whatever else. We're going to watch the ECNL playoffs and the RL playoffs, and it's a really cool time of year for the players, the clubs, the teams, and for the league.
I can see why you didn't have enough T-shirts years ago. It's 336 teams that are here.
So I got to do the math on that.
So that's how these things happen, Doug. That's how these things happen.
Detail oriented.
Yes, we are. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, I think always an important thing to point out about our playoff structure and what we're doing here is we want to give that experience, that qualification experience, to as many teams as we can that makes sense, right? And there's obviously a limit to that, but we want to get as many teams here as possible because we think that helps, that being in this environment, this competitive environment, which we're going to talk about, and this winning environment really helps kids both from an experience standpoint, but also just from the standpoint of their development. And the more you're in that, kind of pressure situation, and we realize it's youth sports, but to the players, it's pressure. My son is here, so he's feeling it. Said he couldn't sleep last night that good because he's got a big game today. So I think that's what's really great about this event to me. And from the beginning, we wanted that. We wanted to give as many teams as possible the experience of being here and feeling that.
Well, and really, I mean, we'll talk about this as well, but we're going to make soccer win again.
Make soccer win
again. See what
again.
I did with that? We're going to make soccer win again.
Right.
We believe in the importance of winning. These events, teams fight all year to get here. They fight here to advance out of their group to an elimination game. They fight in the elimination game to move on to the finals in Richmond in a month or so, 3 weeks, whatever it is. And, there's a lot of back and forth over the years about what role winning plays in youth soccer and how do you make youth soccer and coaching education and everything better. But what fundamentally makes this the most special event all year is the excitement to compete and to win. And I don't know if what I'm sure your thoughts are similar to ours, but we haven't had you on here in a while to talk about it. But
I mean, in soccer in general, and one of the main reasons the ECNL has been successful over the years is meaningful games, right? And then when my club previously was not in the ECNL, trying to get in the ECNL, we always commented about how it felt like 1 out of every 5 or 6 games was meaningful in the sense that it was highly competitive and had scouts attending and things like that. When you get into the league, you realize all of a sudden that every one of these games matters because you're trying to get here, right? And you need to win to get here, right? When you get here, then it's all about winning, right? This is playoffs. This is about winning. So at the end of the day, you want to raise a really nice trophy on stage, then you need to win your games, and that is what you feel when you arrive at playoffs, right? The energy at these fields right now, this celebration, the club-wide celebrations in the corners of the fields when teams are scoring, that doesn't happen unless something big is on the line. And that big thing is a trophy, and that means something to players.
And it ramps up. Like, it's interesting. Like here today, we're just kicking off. So
let's talk about that. The way the competition is set up. So we're here at the boys. So U13 to U18. Okay, 14 to 17 is the same format, right? Yeah. 64 teams here in group play, and I think that's what you're going to lead to is the difference from probably today to day 3.
Yeah, correct.
So let's talk about that. U13 also group play. Just a smaller number. U18 is different. U18 is pure knockout, and so they start at 100 miles an hour in terms of drama, tension, excitement. But let's talk about how teams got here.
Well, they played all season in their conference to qualify, right? And certain numbers of teams from each conference qualify to get here, and then they're seeded and put into groups and. Then they go, except for the U19s, to your point, which the reason we're there in knockout is because we finish here. Because
a lot of those kids are moving on to college.
Correct, as opposed to going to that second stage. But so that's what I was going to allude to is how the energy will build as we go through. So today I wouldn't say it's muted, but it's not what it will be in 2 or 3 days from now, right? Where things are really heating up.
Most of the huge yells today are probably U18 because that is a knockout. The other ages, they're excited, but they got 3 games to get through. And I got the percentages here about how hard it is to get here, right? And we've had to balance between you want teams playing meaningful games late in the season because that's what makes soccer fun. So if teams get eliminated too early, in the season and they don't see a postseason opportunity, then soccer becomes less fun and less inspiring, and they sort of dwindle off. So we have the balance of keep it relevant and competitive for as many people as long as possible during the regular season, but also make sure that when we get to the playoffs, it is only the best of the best. And there's a difference between the boys and the girls on that too, because the boys, it's one field of 64 when you're in those primary age groups. There's not multiple levels. Girls, there is multiple levels. We can maybe talk about the differences on that. But the boys, it's one field of 64, and in those age groups, U14 to U17, 43% of the ECNL boys teams in each age group make it to the playoffs. So less than half of the teams in the league are here playing today. At U18, we also do it smaller because it's one stage, 22%. I think we have, what is it, 32?
32. Yep.
32 boys teams out of 148. So, I mean, that's really hard to get here. And at U13 and 14, because they're sort of ramping up, just U13, 32%. So pretty hard to get here at U13. And part of that's also, you see a wider range of competition at U13, I think, because of physical development mostly, than you do at 15, 16, 17 as that narrows down, so the field gets a little bit bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that feels right, where again we can achieve our goal of giving as many teams experience, but also getting the best teams here. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to achieve. And then there's the logistics of the whole thing, which is we have this many fields, and how many teams can you realistically have an event here? And we've obviously done some things logistically within our structure to make sure it can happen by varying the rest day or whatever to make sure the teams get here. But it feels right.
So on that note, I mean, generally you play game 1, day 1, game 2, day 2, rest day. Game 3, last group game, comes after a rest day. Then there's another rest day after game 3. And only the advancing teams play game 4, which is the knockout game to get to the round of 8 and go to the playoffs.
We will vary the rest day age group wise. So sometimes, I know the U15s, they play the first day, then they rest the second day, and then they go game. And then again, we always rest before the elimination game, right? Because we think that's the right thing to do. So,
and we've changed, if you rewind 3 or 4 years, we also changed the format for certain ages. Like the U13s years ago, a smaller field, and they did a knockout. Right? And that was when we spoke to the club directors coming out of playoffs. I remember being in North Carolina coming out of COVID, and that was the setup at that time for the U13s. More teams wanted to be in the event, right? There was a high appetite for teams to get into the event. We didn't want to expand and double, for instance, to go to 64. But one of the other issues was just that there was also a concern over having a knockout format, right? That we wanted to instead have group play. So we expanded from 32 to 48, made it a group play situation for the U13s. And since then, everyone's been really...
And the reason, right, is because if you work all year and then you come and it's one and done and you have a bad day and you're the number one team, that's tough, right? And so there's realities with that at 18, but maybe talk about, because I think the U18 change that you made, and I hate to give credit to Jason as a matter of course, but that you suggested and we found a way to make the U18s relevant, even though you have to do knockout, because we've got to get it all done in one time frame so these kids can move on and go to school. So maybe talk about the U18 structure, because that is different and unique.
Yeah, I mean, the initial view of the U18-19s was that it was going to be 2 fields of 16, and that we were going to have 16 playing for the Champions League, 16 playing for the North American Cup. We kind of recalibrated after that first year of doing it. And I give Teddy Chronopoulos from Patty Dora's a lot of respect for this, because his team won the North American Cup that first year. I coined it the Teddy Cup. He didn't like that. But coming out of that, the conversation was that wouldn't it be better if all 32 teams started in a competition for the Champions League and then divided after day 1? And so we looked at that. And
so it's like a second bite of the apple.
So you basically, that way it kind of mitigates what you said before, that risk of having that number 1 seed lose on day 1 and then not having that title to play for. So after day 1, when these games all take place, we'll then split into 2 groups of 16. Then those 16 will then each play for either a Champions League.
So one field of 32, then it breaks. Winners go into the Champions League, knockout of 16, and then knockout of 16 for the North American Cup, which is the second level. But that is a difference between the boys and the girls, because
that's a mailbag question that we have, is why is the boys just Champions League, or why do the girls have North American Cup, Showcase Cup A, and Showcase Cup B?
And that's intrepid podcast producer Jacob coming in with that. And so what we found, and I'll invite you to go deeper on this, is on the girls' side, we have multiple levels of cups in those sort of middle age groups, which is the predominant majority of the event. We have Champions League, then we have North American Cup, and then on the girls' side, we have 2 Showcase Cups that go deeper than that. And that's great. The girls' side loves that. On the boys' side, it is one very big Champions League, and that's it. So talk about that, why we did that on the boys versus having the different levels of competition.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a few different viewpoints on that. One being the collegiate scouting piece. When you look at the numbers and the volume of programs in this country for women's soccer versus men's soccer, it's almost double. I think it's actually a little bit over double of women's programs versus men's. And the budgets for those programs are also probably more than double. So you just have more college scouts on the women's side that are at these events. For the girls' side, that means that more games will be scouted in that event, right? On the boys' side, we understand that we have to taper that down to just the games where the teams that are playing for the Champions League are going to be scouted, because there's fewer scouts. Now, granted, we have almost 500 scouts
Well,
here.
let's talk about that. So last year, and the numbers here look like they're going to be the same or above, but last year we had over 500 scouts from college soccer here on the boys' side. In the girls last year, we were over 1,000. Right, and you just mentioned there's about twice as many programs on the girls' side than the boys' side to begin with. So that number of scouts makes sense. And what that tells you is that this is the place to scout college soccer players, because we have an exact ratio, and nobody can argue on the girls' side where the top level scouts are going. And we have the same thing is now happening in the ECNL Boys.
Yeah, so if your team falls just short of qualifying on the girls' side for the Champions League, you're still enticed to be at that playoff event, because you're going to have one of the best scouting opportunities of your career at that event. On the boys' side, we know that the numbers don't have that same allowance, right? We need to be sure that the teams that are here are competing for a championship, and they're also being scouted. We don't have the multiple layers. Now,
I would also say that I think the girls are happy competing for a championship at different levels. And maybe that's male ego, what it is.
I think we've talked about this before, and again, this is my opinion, so take it for what it is. And I think I've said this on this podcast before. I think the feeling is that boys soccer in this country is deeper as it relates to, it's more competitive farther down the ladder.
The gap from 1 to 64 is
smaller. And so there's a realistic. If you come here as the 64th team, you're not, we've seen clubs that are smaller from smaller markets.
Well, we did the data last year. There were some 4 seeds, right, the bottom pot.
South Carolina Surf that won the U15s last year from a small market like that, you just don't see that on the girls' side. And that's just a reality. And the other part of it is, I think winning anything is really hard. And our view on the girls' side is that there aren't that many teams that are going to win the champ, and a lot of it is geographical and other factors. And so we've just put other layers in to give people a chance to win different things, which I think is the right decision on the girls' side. So it's a little bit of a apples and oranges comparison. And what we've tried to do is look at each individually and say what is the best situation for each, the boys and the girls.
Yeah, and a cool thing, and I think this shows over time, for a long time the Girls' Champions League was 32 teams, right? Boys 64, and that reflects that depth issue. Last year we expanded the Girls' Champions League to 44.
44, yep.
I believe.
44, yep.
And the fact that we were able to do that, and then we tracked the scores, because it was, again, you don't want to come here and play a game that's not competitive, and as you would say, it's not showcaseable. Or not meaningful.
Just for the record, I didn't use the word showcaseable.
What do you say, recruitable?
If you did, you invented a word.
Brought into this by
I
Christian.
think Christian just invented a word.
Well, that's how the vocabulary expands.
It's very lawyerish.
Yeah,
it's very lawyerish.
But the cool part about that is that with that expansion to 44, we did not see a significant increase in games that were not competitive. And we saw a very similar, because every now and then there's always going to be a team that has a bad day, right? But generally, the fact that we could put 44 girls teams now in the top level and expect all of those games to be meaningful, we couldn't say that 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think that is a really positive statement about just the level of play in the country and how there's more teams and more clubs that are starting to bubble up, and the group is not so small at the top anymore. It's getting bigger.
Yeah. Jason, I guess I would ask this from your perspective. How do you, like, as you come here, how do you balance the winning aspect of this and the recruiting aspect of this, and because this is the culmination of the whole season? Like, as you look out there and go around and talk to these directors and whatnot, like how is that? What are they saying about how to balance that and the importance of development? There's always this argument about development and versus winning. I don't know how you decouple those things because you can't. I don't think you can, because I think one has to do with the other and vice versa. So, but as you talk to people and see everything through your lens, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, the beauty of it is that the college coaches love being at playoffs because it's about winning, right? College coaches want to keep their jobs, they want to stay in their jobs, and in order for that to happen, they need winners. And so when you look out on the field, you know that club coaches are going to make decisions that need to be made in types of games like this, right? That's on the club director to have that conversation with their clubs, with their players, with those families, to be transparent, to say, look, this is playoffs, right? This is not a showcase. This is a playoff. And so that will impact. I felt that as a pro player, right? As a pro player, you know that once you're subbed off, you're off. Different here at the youth level, where you can get back on the field in the next half, right? But those decisions have to be made in tough moments, right? And I think what the college coaches have said resoundingly here is that the reason they love these games is because they clearly matter. They are about winning, and when they want to select a player that's going to help them win a conference championship at the collegiate level, they're going to want the kid that's going to put his forehead on a ball, even though someone else is swinging their foot at that same ball to get it over the end line. Those types of moments you see in playoffs all over the place, and I think that's the atmosphere that we've tried to create here in the league. Is that winning is important, right? Why do so many people in this country get mad at the U.S. men's national team? Because they're not winning. It's not because of their style of play. It's because of their winning, right? And so if Pochettino puts the roster out there that wins, no one the next day is going to be like, yeah, we won, but I really didn't like the way we played out of the back. No, we're going to say we won, and that's a bar of success. So I think when clubs come here and they're playing for a title, they're trying to win. And when you make decisions based upon winning, will that sacrifice certain positions? Will that sacrifice certain styles? Yes, but winning is a style.
Yeah, and the reality as a player is part of your development is an understanding that I need to be that guy that helps my team win. And what do I need to do to be that guy? And as players get older, I'm sure both of you guys would agree with this. As players get older, it's, you probably develop the things soccer-wise that you need, but it's between the ears and your ability to dig down and have the brave, be brave enough to put your forehead on the ball when a foot's coming up at your head to score that goal or whatever. That's where I just think it's hard, these conversations where we decouple development from winning is really tough, because I think a lot of the mentality and the things that you need to develop, the intangible things that help you win, are really important to development.
Well,
and you do that by being at places like this.
And as you said before, it's a false choice. It's a false choice to say it's either one or the other.
Right.
And you can sense a theme here that we're leaning into, and we're going to be leaning into more, the importance of competing to win. And that doesn't mean that nobody's being taught soccer, that there's no tactical sophistication. It means that I think, and I'd be curious your opinions on this, over the last 20 years, there's been a great increase in soccer IQ in the average soccer player, the average youth soccer coach, the average fan in this country. There's more people now who know something about soccer than they used to.
Sure.
But the other change that's happened in this, and yeah, you think back to early in your coaching career or even in playing, when you used to come to postseason, and at that point it was usually USYS regionals.
Yeah.
That it wasn't for recruiting, it wasn't for exposure, it was to win a championship. That's it.
100%.
And it was the most exciting part of the year, and the most drama-filled and emotion thing, and it was the thing that drove people. That's why people, I mean, if you've ever tried to run a training when there's no game on the horizon, the training's not very good, right? I mean, as soon as players know there's not a game to play, motivation to train drops, right?
Yeah, sure.
100%. No matter how aspirational the kids are, there is a difference. And so while these events in postseason have become an unbelievable recruiting opportunity, and we went through the numbers on both sides, what this really should be about ultimately in the postseason is competing to win. And I think we need to lean back into that. And maybe that's a cultural thing, individual, look at me and what do I get? But the focus back on the collective moving on is really important.
I think maybe what happened, and you guys tell me, this is kind of my hypothesis that I think about this, especially on the men's side, is everybody said, like if you remember us back in 2002, let's say when we made the quarterfinal, and the U.S., they have just this fighting mentality and this fighting spirit, but
by the way, did it entertainingly so.
They don't play good enough soccer. They're not good enough. They don't have world-class players. I think that was the narrative.
Yeah.
And so then, we take this kind of right turn maybe to, okay, now we have to create these world-class players by just thinking only about development. And then over the course of time, probably the unintended consequence of that is we kind of lose maybe our mentality that made us successful as a fighting, spirit. And so now I think if you watch us, maybe people the criticism is that we don't fight hard enough. It looks like we don't care. I've heard that a lot.
Of course they care. We know
of course they care. But so I think that's kind of what I think is maybe we leaned so hard into it that we forgot, well, this is something that's really great about our team and our culture.
Well, and you know what I'd say, because I think I read this, and maybe Jacob or Reed can fact check me on this, but wasn't there a quote from Pochettino recently about the difference of playing in America and playing somewhere else, and playing in a lot of other countries, soccer is a fight to be won, and playing soccer in the United States, it's a game being played, and he was sort of highlighting the difference in that mentality of just going out there to compete to win.
Well, and what was it about those earlier, when we look at the highest level, they were fighting for respect because people maybe said, hey, the Americans, they don't. And so there's a fight for respect. Yeah. And then I felt like we got some respect. And then, and I don't know, I can't say, but then it seems like we've kind of steered away from that fighting for respect.
Well, we got more players playing in places around the world than we've ever had.
Yeah.
But at the same time, then there's been a sort of questionable arc for the national team performance for a while.
Yeah.
That, anyone who says this stuff is easy is lying. And anyone who says that we haven't advanced tremendously as a country is lying. Anyone who said that youth soccer has gone backwards is lying. All of that stuff is moving forward, but none of it happens in terms of observable results overnight or even quickly.
Yeah.
It takes time. Some of it's cultural, some of it's long-term development, some of it's generational, and each generation becomes a little bit more intelligent about the game. I mean,
what do you think? What do you think about that?
I mean, the game has definitely evolved. There's no doubt about that. I think that everyone look at track and field, right? Records continue to be broken, right? Our humans just getting faster and faster and faster. Is there a tipping point there? Soccer players are getting better. Our soccer players now on the national team level are more skillful, and they play at a faster speed at that skill level than the generations before. But what they're lacking is what we're talking about.
Except for you, I'm sure you could step out there.
But what we're talking about is what Bocanegra, what Dempsey, what McBride brought to the table is what we're lacking right now, right? Where someone has a heart and passion and, perseverance, courage, whatever you want to call it, that they would go into a fight in order to win the game. And
you see a little bit of that with Diego Luna.
which is a breath of fresh air, which is great. And we do have these players that can perform. There's no doubt. Like Tyler Adams is a fantastic player. He is a ball winner at the highest level in the English Premier League. He's a fantastic type of player to have in there. We need more of those. I think the issue is that and I said this on when you guys have me on the podcast like once a year, so I remember this.
Yeah,
Sort
that's
of
all
like,
we can handle.
It's the cross we bear.
That's all.
But I do believe that our country devalued winning.
Got a big goal. Got a
Through
big
the
goal
U.S.
somewhere.
Development Academy, right? The Development Academy brought a lot of good to this country, for sure, in terms of emphasizing standards and styles of play and things like that. It brought accountability to the game that it never had before, but it devalued winning. Because all of a sudden it wasn't about winning, it was about playing a certain style. And what that created over time was that players were more interested in winning contracts than winning trophies. And when you're interested in winning a contract, you're going to take a day off. You're going to rest. You're going to worry about load management, which is a big concern right now, right? Everyone's talking about load management. You think about load management when you're trying to preserve your body in order to showcase your body to get a better contract. And that happens all the time in the game. So I think we have to be careful that we don't de-emphasize winning at the expense of development, right? When you go to preseason, whether you're a youth coach, college coach, pro coach, you go into preseason to work on styles and systems, right? You work on those systems in order to break down an opposition. Why are you trying to break down the opposition? To score less goals at them? No, you're trying to beat them so that you can get here into playoffs. So when we coach to develop players, we're trying to develop winners. And then if you don't win the game, you can't be like, yeah, but it's because of development. No, it's not because of development. It's because of maybe the athletic pool of players.
The two cannot be decoupled. I mean, I
Cannot.
think we got to stop. People got to stop talking about
Gotta
that
stop,
decoupling.
Yeah. Got to stop.
You're out to win. Everyone's out to win. No one play. I don't play. It's a card game of Uno. I'm against my daughters. I don't want to lose. I want to win in Uno, right? Because I want to compete.
The Bracken house rule is no free lunches.
Yeah, I don't play Uno to lose because then my daughters will rip on me for losing to them. So it means something to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every card game is meaningful.
As you look at and think about us moving forward here, and again, this is unbelievable atmosphere. By the way, just looked over my shoulder, and OP is playing surf in the U19s, and OP just scored on a penalty, Panenka. So that's gutsy, a little gutsy move. So I mean, obviously, unbelievable experience, and being at these great facilities so important. What do you like as you look through into your crystal ball? What do you want to see? For the boys ECNL.
Hey, but before you say that, Jacob found us this quote, and I think this is actually really good because I think it'll lead into what you're going to say. This is Pochettino in this quote. He said, "It's not just about showing up in your home country and trying to play nice soccer. No, you must be proud. You must fight for the people that would love to be in your position, for the millions of kids that are going to see us and dream to be one day where we are. This is type of responsibility and commitment we need to show." I mean, that's what we're talking about. I mean, he very explicitly just said it's not just about showing up and trying to play nice soccer. And I think that's the decoupling that we say has to stop.
Yeah, and it's not. I think in some ways, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole right now, but it's the same thing with high school soccer, right? You play high school soccer to represent your community and win, right? Because you want to have that bus ride home where your whole town is out there clapping as your bus arrives back into town. Like, that's about winning, right? That's pride, and I think we need that. To Doug, to your question, I mean, to see where we've come with this league and to see, to be honest, to see the regional league and the transformation of that league over time, and I give Chris Leahy a lot of credit for all the work that's been done there. But to see the number of events that we're operating, to see the social media teams, the creative teams, to see the event operations, to see everything run so smoothly across multiple major events in the same exact 30-day window is amazing to me, right? And so to just be here and to see the level of facility that we have. There's only so many facilities in the country where you can do what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
This type of weather, this type of surface, this type of everything.
And that's another piece to it. There's no point in bringing all the best teams together to play on a field that's poor, to play in weather conditions that make it very difficult to run, or weather that is likely to occur throughout the event that makes it even impossible to play.
Yeah, you got to give yourself the best chance to have a successful event, right?
Which is why we are in Seattle and San Diego.
Yeah.
And that's where we're going to be in the postseason for the ECNL. And then they move all to Virginia, and the Regional League moves all to Virginia. So we have the finals of both the Regional League Final 8 and the ECNL Final 8. in unbelievable facilities in Virginia.
Yeah,
as well.
ultimately you want the games to be determined by the players,
Yeah.
not by the weather or the field conditions or whatever. To the degree that you can control it, which we all know we can't, but you do the best you can to put it into places where you can.
Yeah.
Mitigate.
And to balance that cost and travel issue,
yeah.
right? And that is a reality, because some events we do try and make. The Regional League is more geographically located, right, to do
Yeah.
that. Now the positive of the Regional League is a little earlier for those playoffs right now, so there's a longer planning time for the finals teams. Teams that win here turn around real quick and have to go.
So go back to tell me what you would like. I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, but you're only on one time a year, so we got to take advantage of it. What do you hope like the future looks like?
I mean, competitively, I think what we've done over the last couple of years has gotten better. So the ECNL level, we've shaped it, we've gotten better, we've gotten stronger. To Christian's point earlier about the depth of player pool on the boys' side, we know that we knew a few years back that the boys' side would eventually have more clubs than the girls' side that could all compete for something like this. So I do think that as we shape the next few years, just continuing to look at our competitive level to make sure we have the right clubs in the year, that we're finding the right clubs. If they're in the Regional League right now, I was really happy to see the clubs that have done well in the Regional League postseason are ones that we're promoting into the ECNL next year. So it's a big kudos to a lot of those clubs that have done well there, because we certainly monitor that. I personally want to see our ability to do this at younger ages. That's I coach in the pre-ECNL, so I'm in that mindset right now with these young, but I see the love of the game and the passion for these families, that how much they're investing. I'm not saying financially. Financially, yes, there's every sport, no matter what you're playing. If you're dancing, if you're playing soccer, you're investing a lot of money as families. I get that. But what I've seen personally in coaching at those young ages as a dad, is that my daughters love the game and they want more of it. They want more from it. They want to go compete and play against the best. They want to win a trophy, and I think that passion is something that we have to not control. We have to celebrate. We have to give those kids more opportunities to go out and win something that means something to them.
Yeah.
That was a mailbag question that we had as well, submitted through Buzzsprout, was how have the teams being promoted from the Regional League up to ECNL and the teams who are leaving ECNL, how has that affected the talent pool overall of the ECNL, and especially here at playoffs?
Yeah, let's talk about that. First of all, just an interesting comment on some research you did. So we talked about the percentage of teams that make the playoffs. And on the boys' side, it was 43% of the teams from U14 to U17 make the ECNL playoffs. For girls, it's a little bit different. At U15, 37% make the Champions League, 50% overall, because there's a second division there for the girls. U16 and 17 for the girls, it's 37%, so lower in the Champions League. But 74% make the playoffs, and that reflects that there's more college opportunity on the girls' side in general. Right. But if you compare that to pro sports, and not to say youth and pro are the same, but when you talk about the metric of where do you draw the line in advancing from the regular season to the postseason, interesting, because we're in similar ranges. MLB, 40% advance to the postseason. NFL, 44%. NHL, 50%. NBA, 67%, so that's pretty high.
Yeah, because they added those play-in games.
Yeah. MLS, 60%, still pretty high. NWSL, 57%. So our number is a little smaller than a lot of those pro leagues, but you get a sense there just about how other leagues and other sports balance that. And then specifically, when we're talking about, okay, every year there's changes in the league. We promote some clubs. There's some clubs that are moved out or moved down. And so how does that look? And we'll start with the Regional League teams that are being promoted, that are currently playing in the Regional League, but next year will be playing in the ECNL. And how have they done to date? And we've had 3 RL playoffs so far. The East is not done yet. It's starting this weekend. So we're talking about teams in the South, teams in the West, teams in the Midwest. So Grado Toledo has advanced 3 age groups into the RL finals. All right, that's a pretty strong showing out of the Midwest. Missouri Rush, another promoted club, has advanced 1. West Side Alliance has advanced 1. On the ECNL Boys side, Chicago Inter has advanced their U16s. Colorado Rapids Youth, adding a second program, has gone and advanced their 17s. Kansas Rush has advanced 1. Los Gatos out of California has advanced 2. And 3 Rivers. Is that Oregon? Seattle. Three Rivers in Seattle, I should know that, has also advanced 1. So you're seeing promoted clubs that are performing today in the RL very, very well, because that's very hard to get out. Similar structure in the RL. Group stages.
Well,
and
it's
then a
bigger,
knockout.
so it's harder
Yeah.
because it is a bigger by number. Yeah.
Well, and then you also look at, okay, so every year there's teams that move out, all right, or no longer in the ECNL. I think this is really telling, especially we've talked about sort of the chaos of the last 4 months or so. But when you look at this, when you want to start, boys? On the boys side of the teams, so we have 48 teams at U13 that are here, 64 at 14, 15, 16, 17, 32 at U18. Teams that will not be in the league next year account for, on average, less than 5% of those teams that have qualified here. And that's a strong statement. So you're talking about generally between 1 and 4 teams out of 64 in general that are not going to be in the ECNL that are here. So that it tells you that the talent in the ECNL is continuing to get better.
Yeah, so any narrative that people have left for other platforms and will really hurt our level or whatever is a false.
No, because most of those teams are not here.
Correct.
Or most of those clubs are not here in very many teams.
Yeah, did not.
Now, on this girls' side, it's very, very similar. Again, in 13 and 14 in girls, we're talking about 44 teams. Two teams in each age group that are not going to be in the league next year. And at U15, 16, and 17, where we're talking about 48 teams in the Champions League, we have 1 across 3 age groups. So again,
pretty resounding
the metrics
statement,
are very clear of where is the quality in the country and where are they playing, and that's a credit. And this is another cool part about being here is, you know, they talk about one of the problems in government being people make decisions that are not accountable for the outcomes of those decisions because they're not operating the things that are impacted by new law or regulation, whatever it may be. You look out here, the people out there coaching are the people that give us the information to make this league better. They tell us what they want. They tell us what's working. They inform when we make decisions, say, hey, let's lean a little more into winning. We think it's important. Well, that's based on feedback and discussion, right? And when you look at this event, it's a beyond the fact of the quality of the players, this is an event people will remember in their soccer memory forever.
Yeah, the college coaches too, and it's lunchtime, so you can tell the sheer volume of college coaches.
Chick-fil-A on the menu today.
Chick-fil-A today. But we get a lot of feedback from those coaches too. You know, walking around and talking to the college coaches is an important part. We do our best. You know, ECNL has always done a great job of bending over backwards with the college coaches, U.S. national team scouts. Look, every MLS club is here scouting this event as well. So we know that we're providing food and beverage and snacks and, you know, schedules and you name it, chairs, sunscreen. But they also offer us major value in terms of their bodies being on the sideline, right? Because the players love to see that. The players respond to that. I knew as a young player, if there was college coaches on the sideline, I was definitely going to ramp it up even more, right?
See, you hate it when that happens.
Know,
if you're coaching and you see that kid work
give me your best
now,
all the time,
come
Jason.
on, Jason.
Come on.
But that atmosphere is created by college coaches, so we have to speak with them. We have to get their feedback. What can we do differently? They actually were very impactful in how we set the schedule with Scott Letts, who's done a great job with this event. But Scott's
the event manager running all administration.
Previous college Division I college coach. He built the schedule for this boys event on what college coaches want, right? In terms of staggering the starts of those games, making sure that the age groups are spread out across the full day so that you can show up at 8 a.m. and show up at 2 p.m. and still scout college teams, college athletes. So I think you don't want to be remiss in not mentioning that the college coaches are a big part of why we do what we do as well. And it's a big part of the why for the players.
Yep.
We would be brought up the staff, be remiss if we didn't say, you know, big thank you to them. We have a ton of people on our staff, and it's obviously not everybody, but who played the game, played in the league, coached in the league.
That's the crazy part now.
I
we
know,
got
right?
people working a lot now
Wow.
that played in the league that have, and that's different. it's different when you played somewhere and then you go and work there, whether it's a club or a league. It just is a different level.
100%. I was talking to Colin Klein yesterday, who's on our events team, a young guy, but we were talking about, I was telling him, 16 years ago we had our first thing. I'm like, how old were you 16 years ago? He's like, I was 5. And I was like, dang, that makes us feel a little old, Christian, but that's all right.
A little more gray.
But I do think that, having people involved in the game and running the game, and obviously the people on the staff of the ECNL are highly involved in running the youth game in this country, that they've got that experience, whether it be playing in the league, coaching in the league, or whatever. I think it's a really important part. And, we've always said, hey, we want to give people careers in the game and help them, because that's ultimately how we continue to advance the game. So I do want to say thank you. I know Scott Letts and Blaine, our director of events, is here.
Blaine's going to be in both places, flying back and forth.
Yeah, as will we.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take off and head to the girls in a couple days, but they kind of make all this happen, and it's great. And obviously we got to give a special thanks to Crossfire. And everybody involved with them for everything.
Well, I'll just comment on the scouting, because we talked about it. I mean, we're going to be over 500 college scouts here. We're going to be over 1,000 college scouts in the girls' side. And again, those numbers in perspective are almost exactly correlated to the number of programs. MLS scouts all over the place here. Most of the NWSL teams, if not all of them, are going to be down in San Diego, which is another thing. This is a platform for these players to go everywhere. And also, kind of under the radar, and I think it's going to get bigger and bigger, is Pat McStay's work with the Heritage Project. So last year we had 5 or 6 scouts from international federations that came to the playoffs, boys and girls, and watch. And that's growing every year. So we're having more national teams and representatives of national teams from outside of America looking for kids with dual heritage. And that's our job as well. All of this stuff, we talk about the importance of moving on and winning, and that is a big piece of it. And the other piece is this is a launching platform for these kids to move on to college soccer, pro soccer, for some of them to have national team domestically or foreign. And that's a really cool thing as well. Dreams come out of here.
Yeah. Well, that's what you want. I mean, that's why we do it, right? To give those opportunities. And then just balancing, not everybody's obviously going to go play on a national team or be a professional player. A lot of people won't. But also just giving the experience so that when the players out here are moving on to whatever they move on to in their lives, they look back at this and they're like, man, that was unbelievable. I laugh because, and I'm sure you guys would agree, like I think about my youth soccer experience or my youth sports experience, and I was like, it was nothing like this. I wouldn't even have been able to fathom.
Well, they didn't have automobiles yet.
Right, that's true. We did have to walk all the way across
state lines. You seen the
Flintstones?
He was actually running.
This is why you only get brought on for so few times. Yeah, you do. You got to make the best.
You know the other thing, and I think you've talked about this, and last week we talked about that big fish, small pond question.
Yeah.
When you win here, you win at the top level.
Yeah, you're a big fish.
Like it means something to win here, and I think that's another really cool fact because it's really hard to win at any level.
Really
in this
hard.
league. Conference, playoffs, whatever. So when they do it, and it's especially cool to me when a club from sort of outside the norm does it.
Love that.
Because you see how much it means to compete and win when you know it is the top level. And this is what happens at a podcast. We're coming up. Rockford Raptors, good luck.
That's funny. That's good. That's good. Yeah, no, I agree. It's so hard to win, man. It is great. It is great. So, my son's about to play.
I know you got a time limit. So
my son's about to play.
We got any questions that from mailbag? We tried to bring them into the conversation, Jacob. But is there any big one we missed that we should touch before we shut this down?
This is what they call dead air in the.
At least Jason's in the middle,
business,
so everybody can get a good look.
Yeah, Jason.
I mean, you better be ready for a brain buster. I'm assuming.
So ready.
I think the only other one we had that if you guys want to talk about is just what is your favorite event every year and why is it playoffs?
And why is it playoffs?
Why is it playoffs? Yeah.
Well, I think that I'll take the first answer on that. because of everything we talked about. It's the biggest, it's the most exciting. The facility, the city, the location is unbelievable. I mean, all of our events have unique, cool parts to it. This is the icing on the cake.
Yeah.
It's a simple question.
Totally ditto. Yeah, it's just.
I love Jason's probably gonna have some nuanced answer.
There's so many games where something is on is on the line. Like you just hear the cheers everywhere all the time, and I think that's so cool.
I think the social media post that our team put out with the bag, there was a bag like a
going through the airport screen
that had all the different stickers from all the different events that we've had this year. Like, to me, playoffs is like, as a staff, as an organization, we've made it to another playoff. And it's a long year. Like, there's a lot going on between ECNL Regional League, pre-ECNL, showcase events, regular season, qualification,
NSGs.
There's just so many things that when you get to this point, it's like a celebration of getting here. And I think when you look around and see that it's just, again, another very well done event, it's yes, the weather is uncontrollable, but we know we pick places that have great weather. We know we have awesome facilities. We work with great people. But when you get to this level and you can just sit back and say, wow, this was another really successful year, that's why I enjoy playoffs.
Well, and I mean, it sounds silly at some level, but it's kind of playoffs for the staff too. Because the creative team tries to make things special and different at the playoffs. The events team tries to make the playoffs stand out more. And if, like, you just look, I don't know if you can see this on the recording or not, but when you look out at the zone and you look out at the branding there, I don't know how, if you're not excited to play here based on everything that's put on, then you're just not excited to play soccer. I mean,
if I gauge it on how my son always feels to be able to come here, and this is his third year, he's like, so hyped about it. He loves it. Yeah, he loves it. He loves it. So it's good. It's good stuff. We're gonna find out in about, I don't know, 20 minutes.
Who you playing?
Legends.
Ooh, out of SoCal.
Yeah.
That's a tough
That's
first
a
draw.
tough first game. But hey, if you don't believe you can win, you won't.
So
get after it. All right, we ready for Brain Buster?
I think so.
This might be. I don't know if this might be just the three of us today because these guys aren't mic'd up. But you're here in spirit. So my Brain Buster today is, give me your most memorable winning moment in the ECNL. Most memorable winning moment in the ECNL. It's a tough one.
I mean, I'll go first because you have to.
You have to really think. Christian really has to think hard.
It's been a long time. Yeah.
So 2019 was the year I was hired by ECNL. So I was finishing my coaching term with Pittsburgh Riverhounds at that point. We were in San Diego playoffs. Now, granted, we were competing in the Showcase division, Showcase A.
It's all right.
We were not in the Champions League that year. But that last run, because I knew that was my last run with that particular team. It was a very super special team to me. I knew that they were emotional because they knew it was my last run with them as well as a team. But they just went through the entire event and didn't lose a single game. We ended up winning that championship. And for me to be able to spend that time with those players and those families as being my my last hurrah before I joined ECNL was something that I'll never forget.
Yeah. Christian?
Yeah, well, I'll answer it two ways. So one, I'll say my best memory of winning, and I'll go back all the way to 2011, which is the last year. In 2011 was the last year all the ECNL clubs played in USYS. So it's the last, what I'll say, really top-level, meaningful championship in U.S. youth soccer. And I was fortunate, blessed to have a team that won that national championship, and that was an unbelievable experience, and that speaks back to just the power of winning and the fun and the memories that comes out of it. So a shout out to that team because that was fantastic. Played Mr. Jason Dewhurst and Stars of Massachusetts in the Final Four there. But if we talk specifically ECNL, it was actually here. Many years ago, we had a group we ultimately lost in the North American final in a shootout. But to get to the final, because that's knockout competition. And I remember it was one of those two fields down there, and it was one of those games that was 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, It might have ended up 4-3. And here playing in this environment and the North American Cup, again, it wasn't the Champions League, but the cool part of it, as we've said before, it's hard to win anything here. And we're providing brackets that are appropriate for the teams that are there. And you see teams that move from North American up and down and showcase and all that, but it means something to all of them. And the lessons that they can take out of that are the same. whether it's the top division trophy and the win and loss there, or the showcase. It's the same lessons. And so I think you see those things coming out and those memories coming out at all of these fields within the context of the team and the club.
Yeah. Mine would be, had a group, we started the season poorly, U18-19 group. Had a kid on the team that it was a tough, just not a good mix. She left, and the team came to me and said, and actually one of our, a couple of our staff coaches, a couple of our staff members for ECNL played on that team, so Paige Knorr and Michaela Hampton and Olivia Brown. They came to me and they said, what do we have to do to make it to the playoffs? Which you rarely hear from a girls U18-19 team, right?
Yeah, any boys U18-19 too stuff.
I said, well, we're going to have to probably win every game we have left, and we had 15 games left. And we won 14 games in a row. We came to the last game of the season, and we had to tie Indy Fire. And they brought all their college kids back and all this stuff, and so when we ended up tying that game, and we won the conference, and we got to go to the playoffs, and we went 2-0, and then we played Top Hat in the last game, and we ended up losing that game. But I always felt like that team was a little bit of underachievers in a way. We were always good, but just we couldn't get over the top, and to just see them get to where to fulfill their full potential. It was a group that I was with for many, many years. And then obviously to have some of those guys working in the league now is pretty special. But that would be probably my favorite ECNL moment.
Well, the volume's getting higher here.
Yeah,
you can tell
yeah.
already on day one. It's going to keep escalating through day 4 or 5.
Hopefully hear lots of cheers from the Ohio crowd over on field 4.
Well, we're gonna cheer for Xavi, but I think you hear through all of our stories how exciting this event is, even to us looking back now as the adults coaching or running the league, and hopefully the memories and the experience of the players here are going to be just as good as we remember them. And again, thanks to our team, unbelievable event, creative, league services, administration, the amount of shipping that comes out here. I mean, we should own stock in FedEx or UPS.
We might.
So shout out to all the staff in doing this, and obviously our podcast team and putting this on live, a new challenge. We got some background noise that we normally don't have. And then Doug, I think a shout out to all the different sponsors that we have here. Gatorade, Nike,
Continental Tire,
Discount Tire, Salt, Quick Goal. It's a long, long list. Athlete One, Athlete Travel, who support us in logistics. It takes an army here to make this work, and we appreciate everybody who contributes to it.
Yeah, absolutely.